Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. My name's Todd Goldfinger, and here's today's top stories. Thanks for being with us. David Frodsham was a top civilian commander at a U.S. air base in Afghanistan when he jokingly asked an IT technician for access to YouPorn, the video sharing pornographic website. During his time in the war zone, Frodsham told one woman that he hired her because he, in quotes, wanted to be surrounded by pretty women, end quotes, and routinely called others honey, babe, and cougar. Before he was ordered home after the military verified multiple allegations of sexual harassment. In quotes, I would not recommend placing him back into a position of authority, but rather pursuing disciplinary actions at his home station, end quotes, wrote one commanding officer when recommending that the Army order Frodsham to leave his post at Bagram Airfield and return to Fort Huachuca, major Army installation in Arizona, according to a U.S. Army investigative file obtained by the Associated Press. But when Frodsham returned to his home station in fall of 2015, he rejoined the Network Enterprise Technology Command, the Army's information technology service provider, where he had served as a director of personnel for a global command of 15,000 soldiers and civilians, according to his Army resume. Next news. California's first in the nation task force on reparations is at a crossroads, with members divided on which Black Americans should be eligible for compensation as atonement for a slave system that officially ended with the Civil War, but reverberates to this very day. Some members want to limit financial and other compensation to descendants of enslaved people, while others say that all Black people in the U.S., regardless of lineage, suffer from systemic racism in housing, education, and employment. The task force could vote on eligibility on Tuesday after putting it off last month. Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation creating the two-year reparations task force in 2020, making California the only state to move ahead with a study and plan, with a mission to study the institution of slavery and its harms, and to educate the public about its findings. The committee is not even a year into its 2-year process, and there is no compensation plan of any kind on the table. But there is a broad agreement amongst advocates of the need for multifaceted remedies for related yet separate harms such as slavery, Jim Crow laws, mass incarceration, and redevelopment that resulted in the displacement of Black communities. Compensation could include free college, assistance buying homes and launching businesses, and grants to churches and community organizations, advocates say. Yet, the eligibility question has dogged the group since its inaugural meeting in June, when viewers called in pleading with the 9-member group to devise targeted proposals and cash payments to make whole the descendants of people who were enslaved in the U.S. Next news. Florida has come under intense national scrutiny over legislation that critics have labeled "Don't Say Gay" law. The GOP legislation, which Republican Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law Monday, bars instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through the 3rd grade. Republicans argue that parents should broach these subjects with children. Democrats have said the law demonizes LGBTQ people by excluding them from classroom lessons. The law's central language reads, in quotes, "Classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards." End quotes. During his bill signing ceremony, DeSantis presented an example of what he considers inappropriate teaching material for the young students. A poster containing a drawing of, in quotes, "the genderbread person," end quotes, developed to help students learn about and distinguish between anatomical sex, gender expression, gender identity, sexual attraction, and romantic attraction. The graphic has been included in various anti-bullying training programs and offered as a resource by the Washington-based LGBTQ rights advocacy group, Human Rights Campaign, and others. In quotes, "This is trying to sow doubt in the kids about their gender identity," end quotes, DeSantis said. In quotes, "It's trying to say they can be whatever they want to be. This is inappropriate for kindergartners and first graders and second graders. Parents do not want this going on in their schools." End quotes. Next news. Attorneys for some of those killed and injured during last year's deadly Astroworld Music Festival alleged in court on Monday that rapper Travis Scott has violated a gag order issued in lawsuits they have filed in an effort to influence possible jurors and rebuild his reputation ahead of a potential trial. At issue is an announcement Scott made earlier this month about Project HEAL, a $5 million initiative that includes funding for an effort to address safety challenges for festivals and large-scale events. Houston police and federal officials have been investigating whether Scott, concert promoter Live Nation, and others had put in place sufficient safety measures. In quotes. My team and I created Project HEAL to take much needed action towards supporting real solutions that make all events the safest places they can possibly be. I will always honor the victims of the Astroworld tragedy who remain in my heart forever. End quotes. Scott wrote earlier this month on Instagram after the initiative was announced. But Bob Hillard, one of the attorneys representing the family of 9-year-old Ezra Blount, the youngest person to die from injuries during the festival, said during a court hearing Monday that Scott used the power of his social media presence to address concert safety, one of the issues being debated by the lawsuits. State District Judge Kristen Hawkins has previously said the lawyers could tell the media about factual issues that happen in court, but she didn't want attorneys and others to make their cases in court of public opinion and possibly influence the jury pool. We're going to take a short break from the daily English global news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. President Joe Biden's $5.8 trillion budget for next year would trim federal deficits and boost taxes on the wealthiest Americans. Both could appeal to Senator Joe Manchin amid Democratic hopes of reviving talks with him over the party's derailed social and environmental plan. The question is whether this time the pivotal West Virginia Democrat can be wooed to craft a scaled-down version of his party's roughly $2 trillion 10-year package. Before Christmas, Manchin sank that plan, which has already passed the House, saying it would fuel inflation and deepen deficits. Biden and his aides touted his budget, unveiled Monday, as focusing on fiscal responsibility, security at home and overseas, and investments in social programs to help families afford housing, childcare, healthcare, and other costs. Another highlight, $2.5 trillion in tax increases over 10 years on the highest income people and corporations. That included $361 billion from a minimum 20% tax on families worth $100 million or more, the top 100 of 1% earners, though it drew some criticism from Manchin, in quotes. An unprecedented commitment to building an economy where everyone has a chance to succeed, a plan to pay for those investments that we need as a nation, end quotes. Biden described his budget to reporters. Next news. The House panel investigating the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol has identified a roughly 8-hour gap in official records of the then President Trump's phone calls as the violence unfolded and his supporters stormed the building, according to a person familiar with the probe. The gap extends from a little after 11 a.m. to about 7 p.m. on January 6, 2021, according to the person, who was not authorized to speak publicly about the ongoing investigation and spoke to the Associated Press on Tuesday on the condition of anonymity. It's widely known that Trump had conversations on January 6 with multiple Republican lawmakers. House investigators are looking at whether the president was communicating during that time through other means, possibly through personal cell phones, burner phones, or some other type of communication, like a phone passed to him by an aide. The committee has subpoenaed cell phone companies for records and is awaiting data. The committee is also continuing to receive records from the National Archives and other sources which could produce additional information. But the lack of information about Trump's calls is a frustrating challenge to investigators as they work to create the most comprehensive record yet of the attack, with a particular focus on what the president was doing in the White House as hundreds of his supporters violently beat police, broke into the Capitol building, and interrupted the certification of Democrat Joe Biden's presidential election victory. It also raises questions of whether Trump purposefully circumvented official channels to avoid records. Next news. Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong will visit President Joe Biden at the White House to highlight a strategic relationship that administration officials hope will pay dividends as Biden faces challenges in both hemispheres. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Biden and Lee would discuss several issues when they meet Tuesday, including the war in Ukraine and freedom of the seas, a key issue in a region where Beijing has made territorial claims over most of the South China Sea. Singapore is a rare Southeast Asian nation to impose sanctions on Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. The sanctions include restrictions on some exports and a ban on financial institutions from doing business with Russian banks. At the same time, Biden has sought to deepen ties in Asia as a counterweight to China's growing influence. The Democratic president originally was scheduled to host several national leaders from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations this week, but the summit was postponed. Vice President Kamala Harris visited Singapore in August, announcing agreements involving cybersecurity, climate change, and supply chain issues. Next news. Maryland lawmakers who produced the first congressional map drawn by Democrats to be struck down this redistricting cycle will vote on a new map this week, leading lawmakers announced Monday. Democrats went back to the drawing board over the weekend after Judge Lynn Battaglia ruled Friday that the map lawmakers approved in December is a product of extreme partisan gerrymandering. End quotes. The legislation with the new map will get a hearing Tuesday morning before lawmakers. In quotes. This legislation is contingent on the loss of an appeal and is expected to be on the governor's desk this week. End quotes. Senate President Bill Ferguson and House Speaker Adrienne Jones said in a news release. In quotes. However, we worked expeditiously to ensure that the redistricting process was not further delayed and that the map presented reflects the new requirements as set forth by the Judge Battaglia. End quotes. Battaglia said the map violated the state constitutional requirement that legislative districts consist of adjoining territory and be compact in form, with due regard for natural boundaries and political subdivisions. It also violated the state constitution's free elections, free speech, and equal protection clauses, she said. The judge sent the map back to the legislature to develop a new plan by Wednesday and scheduled a Friday hearing to review it in court. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Thank you. The bodies of 2 Russian soldiers lie abandoned in the woods. Ukrainian forces piled atop a tank flash victory signs. Dazed people line up amid charged buildings to reach for aid. These are the sites in a Ukrainian town that has seized back control from Russian forces, at least for now. Arriving in Trostyanets shortly after Ukrainian forces announced the northeastern town near the Russian border had been retaken following weeks of Russian occupation. The Associated Press on Monday saw a civilian landscape that had seen some of the worst of war. The hospital was damaged, its windows jagged with broken glass. The train station had been shot up. Residents stepped carefully, wary of mines. They rode their bicycles past craters in the road and past the ruins of homes. It is not yet clear how many civilians have been killed. Russian tanks lay burned, twisted, left behind, like the soldiers in the woods. One of the soldiers had a red band around his leg. The other had an arm flung over his head as if napping on the leaves in the late afternoon light. The Ukrainian soldier nudged him with his toe. A red Z marked a Russian truck. Its windshield fractured near stacked boxes of ammunition. Hundreds of the boxes, including ones with artillery shells, had been stacked around the town. Curious residents peered into an open box of shells. Next news! Russia's military said Tuesday it would fundamentally cut back operations near Ukraine's capital and a northern city, as talks brought a possible deal to end a grinding and brutal war into view. Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin said the move was meant to increase trust in the talks after several rounds of failed negotiations to halt the conflict that has devolved into a bloody campaign of attrition. Fomin said Moscow had declined to, in quotes, fundamentally cut back military activity in the direction of Kiev and Chernihiv, end quotes, to, in quotes, increase mutual trust and create conditions for further negotiations, end quotes. That appeared to be a goodwill gesture, but also comes as Russia's troops have become bogged down and struggled to make major advances on the ground recently in the face of stiff Ukrainian resistance, thwarting Russian President Vladimir Putin's aim of quick military victory. Ukraine's military said it had noted withdrawals around Kiev and Chernihiv, though the Pentagon said it could not corroborate Russia's claim. Earlier talks, held in person in Belarus or by video, failed to make progress on ending a more than month-long war that has killed thousands and driven more than 10 million Ukrainian people from their homes, including almost 4 million people from their country. Next news. The UN nuclear watchdog says its director general has arrived in Ukraine for talks with senior government officials on delivering, in quotes, urgent technical assistance to ensure the safety of the country's nuclear facilities. The International Atomic Energy Agency said Tuesday that Rafael Mariano Grossi's aim is to, in quotes, to initiate prompt safety and security support, end quotes, for Ukraine's nuclear sites. That will include sending IAEA experts to, in quotes, prioritize facilities, and sending vital safety and security supplies, including monitoring and emergency equipment. It said that Grossi will travel to one of Ukraine's nuclear power plants this week, but didn't say which one. Ukraine has 15 nuclear reactors at 4 active power plants and also is home to the decommissioned Chernobyl plant, the site of the 1986 nuclear disaster. Russian forces have taken control of Chernobyl, excuse me, and of the largest active power plant at Zaporizhzhia. Sorry. Grossi said in a statement that, in quotes, the military conflict is putting Ukraine's nuclear power plants and other facilities with radioactive material in unprecedented danger, end quotes. He added that, in quotes, there have been already several close calls. We can't afford to lose any more time, end quotes. Next news. Excuse me. Next news, please. Europe's already high gas prices have gyrated since Russian President Vladimir Putin announced plans to have importers pay for Russian national gas in rubles instead of dollars and euros. Europe imports large amounts of Russian natural gas to heat homes, generate electricity and fuel industry, and those imports have continued despite the war in Ukraine. Around 60% of imports are paid in euros and the rest in dollars. Putin wants to change that by requiring foreign gas importers to purchase rubles and use them to pay state-owned gas supplier Gazprom. Putin told the Russian central bank last Wednesday to come up with a workable system. Importers would have to find a bank that would exchange euros and dollars for rubles. That could be cumbersome because some Russian banks have been either blocked or cut off from the SWIFT messaging system that facilitates international payments. Still, there are some banks that haven't been cut off, and for now, sanctions imposed by the U.S. Treasury barring bank transactions contain exceptions for energy payments. That's a concession to European allies that are much more reliant on Russian oil and gas, and a fear of total cutoff could throw their economy into a recession. We're going to take a short break from the daily English global news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Thanks for being with us. A Hanford contractor and its owners will pay nearly $3 million after being accused of fraud related to a loan from a federal program to help small businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic. In quotes. These funds were intended to help small and local businesses and keep the communities of Eastern Washington safe and strong, not to line the pockets of millionaire owners. End quotes. U.S. Attorney Vanessa Waldreff said in a statement. HPM Corp., the occupational medicine contractor at the Hanford nuclear site, received a loan of just over 1.3 million in 2020 from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economic Security, or CARES Act, the Tri-City Herald reported. A year later, the U.S. Small Business Administration forgave the initial loan and about $13,500 in interest. An investigation by the Department of Energy Office of Inspector General found that the loan money was not spent by the contractor but was transferred in 2021 to the personal checking account of Holly Moores, the founder and president of HPMC, and her husband, Grover Cleveland Moores. In quotes, stealing money from pandemic relief funds is reprehensible, end quotes, said Terry Donaldson, DOE Inspector General, in a statement released Thursday evening. Next news. Stocks are opening higher on Wall Street Tuesday as talks on ending the war in Ukraine showed signs of progress. The S&P 500 rose 1.1% in the early going, as did the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Technology companies were doing especially well, sending the Nasdaq Composite up 1.4%. Energy stocks were lagging behind again as oil prices sank another 6%, sending the price of benchmark U.S. crude back below $100 a barrel. Treasury yields edged lower again. The yield on the 10-year Treasury note fell to 2.41%. European markets were higher, and Asian markets closed mixed overnight. Says here, I'm just reading this. AP's earlier story follows below. U.S. markets headed higher in pre-market trading on Tuesday as another round of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine got underway. On Wall Street, the futures of the S&P 500 and the Dow Industrials gained 0.6%, and global shares rose while crude oil prices fell again after sinking 7% on Monday. Markets remain unsettled as investors try to gauge what's next for inflation and the global economy as the repercussions of Russia's invasion of Ukraine continue to play out. Next news. The two-phase lockdown of Shanghai's 26 million people is testing the limits of China's hardline, in quotes, zero COVID strategy, which is shaking markets far beyond the country's borders. China's largest city on Tuesday entered the second day of the lockdown's first phase, which includes the Pudong Financial District and adjacent areas on the east side of the Huangpu River that divides the center of finance, manufacturing, and trade. The measures confining Pudong residents to their homes, closing non-essential businesses, and requiring mass testing are to be lifted Friday. At the time, the vast Puxi area on the opposite side of the river will go under lockdown, with public transport suspended and bridges and tunnels connecting the two sides of the city closed. Usually bustling city streets, including the fabled riverside Bund in Puxi, with its century-old historic buildings, were unusually quiet. Zhang Maisha, a 39-year-old freelancer taking a morning jog along the Bund, said she was trying to get as much sunshine as possible before Puxi goes under lockdown. In quotes. I hope the Shanghai spring can wait for us. End quotes, Zhang said. Next news. People across Japan are celebrating the peak cherry blossom viewing season 1 week after lifting of COVID-19 restrictions, triggering concerns of a possible virus resurgence. Trees are in full bloom this week in many parts of Japan. The peak in Tokyo was on Sunday, according to the Japan Meteorological Agency, attracting many people who had avoided participating in the national tradition for 2 years because of the pandemic. At Chidorigafuchi Park, a famous Hanami or cherry blossom viewing spot northwest of the Imperial Palace, thousands of people viewed the fluffy, pale pink flowers while strolling under rows of trees or from rowboats on the palace moat. In quotes. I feel like life has finally gotten back to normal. Here in the downtown area, people have waited for this so long. End quotes. Takanori Shiwaku, a 62-year-old cafe owner, said he admired the blossoms at the park. He said cherry blossoms, which bloom and then fall en masse, connote a sense of pureness. In quotes. I wanted to come here for sure this year, and I'm really happy, end quotes, said Midori Hayashi, a 75-year-old retiree who has largely stayed at home for the past 2 years. This has been the daily global news update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Thank you for joining us. Please log in to get the latest news on all of our social networking sites: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. On TikTok, we are Millennium News 24. Also on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers now on both network broadcasting, Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV. Also, all smart TV platforms. Please enjoy our entertainment, our latest news, views, and current events. our Millennium News TV apps, Millennium TV USA Android, Millennium News Google, www.millenniumnews24.com. Check it out. Stay with Millennium News 24. We thank you very much, and God bless.